Welcome back, sleepers of Arrakis, to a brand new Chapter 3 content drop day, where we, as gamers, get to jump back into Dune, enjoy it, and find everything that we love about the game, and continue the journey on Arrakis. But first, let's take a second to just sit down and say how much I appreciate how great you guys are in supporting this channel every single day, not only by liking, subscribing, and of course sharing this content, but also by joining me live on the weekends whenever I'm doing my streaming dealing with this game. You guys are truly the Coriolis storm blowing this channel into brand new waters. Thank you very much, and now let's get to the map. And boy, oh boy, are we looking at a great map this week to be getting out into the deep desert. Luckily, there should be a lot of open space out there with all that Chapter 3 content being thrown at us and all the hardcore grinders jumping into those overland maps trying to get the Landtrad done. So for all of you dedicated farmers out there, it looks like you're going to have plenty of opportunities to jump out here and get all the resources that you want to bring back home and successfully turn into your wealth. Kicking things off for our conservative miners of the sand out there who don't like exactly venturing into the deep desert to get their hands on those big, large spice plumes. We got all the medium spice plumes that have been popped up. Once again, Funcom has done a great job for us here by evenly distributing everything across the map. It doesn't really matter which side that you go to. And remember, Funcom has been adjusting these medium spice fields for quite a while and making them where they despawn very quickly. So if you are trying to get out here, stay safe and not take the opportunity to give a PvPer a chance to destroy your sandcrawler, you might want to be just jumping out here quickly and scanning everything as quickly as you possibly can. Because once again, if you see a medium spice plume, you're going to want to run to it, because I do believe that somehow or another Funcom has made it where these are despawning very quickly in an attempt to try to get us out here into the more dangerous areas of the desert where we'll get used to the PvP. But if you say no to that, make sure you're flying around and taking care of yourself out here on the smaller medium spice fields. Of course, there is a really nice chunk of land out here in the E6 area where you can see there are quite a few spice fields just across the border, as well as getting them there inside of the safe zone. For a very, very lucky guess, I would say E4 is going to be a hot place for medium spice field bringers. Not only do you get the chance to jump over to E2 and have the opportunity to hit these up that we talked about earlier, but you have these 5 spice fields that have spawned around you in this vicinity. You can also see that in D1, D2, there is going to be a little chunks of islands that we can possibly be building bases on that also have 5 possible islands that are stuck to them, and you'll be able to access the mediums a little bit easier. And of course, you get out here on D8, and there is plenty of real estate out here for us to be trying to put together a base that we can get into these 5 spice fields. So as you can see, they've grouped everything into 5s. I would say that your luckiest bet is going to be somewhere in here between D4 to D6, all the way up into E6 and cutting across at this northern chunk of E4. The reason I'm saying this is that it's going to be your easiest access to both sides. As always, the middle is going to be your best, and that's the real estate for all of your medium spice fields. Now, moving on to our caves, unfortunately, there have been 0 large spice loot caves found this week. And it looks like Funcom is continuing their trend of just draining all of the chances that we had to get those pincushion sets. Of course, now that we have the overland map, it's probably more or less going to be something that you are just going to be able to find out there doing those dungeons in higher ranks. But for the average player that isn't jumping into those overland map dungeons all the time to get stuff, there are plenty of places for you to be jumping in to get your spice plastinium. And you can see that they are situated pretty much evenly all over the map, with D3 and D9 probably being your easiest ones, D6 and C6 being safe. Of course, you can go into the deep desert whenever you're flying around and see these, but I don't know many people that do. I just don't see how it is worth their time in doing so. Once again, no large loot caves this week. Sorry guys, but that's the way the ball rolls when you are playing with Funcom's dev team. Now, diving straight into the POI areas for the large spawns of the plastinium stravidium and titanium. We got a lot out there. Now, the central point here in G5 is a little bit interesting as it is focusing at about 55 nodes per. I haven't been able to get out there because obviously I've been sleeping after staying up all night long doing the first day's content, but they do have nodes ranging around 50 to 60 out there, but I'm not sure if they are elevated or not, so I would kind of not even be interested more or less getting out into this area. If you're really going heavy for stravidium, out here in the west you got two large nodes with over 100 sitting there jam-packed, and of course we have this leaning for the titanium with a smaller stravidium node attached to it out here in the east. This is going to be sitting about 136 nodes, and these two combined will probably be around 100, so about 50 apiece, 50 to 60 apiece. So obviously it is going to be an opportunity to pick up both, but once again, if you're going for the mother lode of stravidium, you're going to want to be heading to the west this week, trying to find a base down here in D1, D2. Once again, I wouldn't worry so much about this medium area. Sure, you can get out there, but it's rarely going to be enough for you to fill up your buggies and bring it back and forth. But once again, if you want to give it a shot, you can. And of course, don't forget this large titanium that's up here deep in I4. Once again, they are all here for you to be jumping into and filling up your coffers for that plastinium resource grind. And I hope that everybody can get in and out of there very safely, because everything dealing with spice this week in terms of the large spice fields are stuck right around these nodes. In fact, they have just cramped them all together. As you can see, G1, I3, H4, F8, I9, they are all more or less, except for this F8, they are all more or less cramped together around the different POI resources, especially over here inside of the west end of the map. Now, I'm going to say the west end is probably the most attractive place this week for somebody who's looking to just go heavy on the resources. Once again, remember, there's only one spice field that ever spawns at any given time, and keeping that in mind, it'll probably be I9 on repeat, but just in case you want to play the numbers game and say, well, hey, here's 3 fields over here, so my chances of one of these fields spawning are going to be greater than saying these 2, and usually the one that is close up to the border, which this week is F8, is more than likely not going to be spawning minus 1 or 2 times per week, because once again, I have noticed that overall, you are getting more large spice plumes popping the deeper in the desert you go. So once again, we are looking at the west end of the map, looking really attractive this week for us, considering that we have a whole bunch of medium spice fields that are popping around this area, as well as the D2, E3 area. So altogether, there's about 10 medium spice fields stuck down here. You got 3 large spice fields on top, and of course, all the stravidium you could ever want. And you could always grab that titanium out here sitting in E4 and stay on your edge of the map. Now, throw all the POIs in with this week as well, and you are seeing a pretty complete picture of where the beautiful real estate is for us to be setting up our deep desert base this week. I love the fact that all of the testing stations are literally in a straight line across the map. This is probably the first time I've ever seen that, and hey, you know what? There is an absolute fantastic thing happening this week, because we have not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 large shipwrecks. Now, all these large shipwrecks have been confirmed to be the walkway. Guess what? Exactly. The walkway for all of our testing ships this week. I just guess any other fallen ships whenever we got to the deep desert. So get used to the walkway. It is a very quick and easy go through. It only takes probably about 5 minutes to complete in total, and this will give you a chance to stockpile up on your 0 level blueprints to get yourself thrown into the overland map testing stations to grab better stuff in the future. When it comes to locations for this week, I would probably say that your best bet is going to be right here around E4, where we have D4, E4, 2 large island chunks that are just kind of sitting out here. You're going to be right close to a testing station. You're going to be right in the midst of about 15 medium spice plumes. You're going to be closest to your large spice plumes that pop out here, not to mention all the stravidium that you could ever desire. And if you really want to get some titanium, it is only literally about 15 Ks away from you, just going straight this way. You probably got about 17,000 K if you're going here. So it is going to be your best bet to hit up E4 area before anyone else does. I would say the second best location is going to be here in E3, D3. Once again, you will have access to all of these little spice fields more or less easier than having to build here on the corners of west and the east side. Now, the central here in E6, E5 is definitely not a bad look. There are a lot of islands, but that means that there's also chances for PvP goblins to be building bases around you and watching you as you go out to do your daily routines. So always keep that in mind. If you don't know who your neighbor is, be very, very careful that they are not online when you are flying your ornithopters out into the deep desert, because you can get caught and really get hurt really quickly. And with that in mind, let's move on to that beautiful loot table. And now, just in case you don't know exactly what you should be looting from these POIs, starting with the down ships, you have the highest rated chance to get some of the best weapons in the game, like the perforator, the pulse knife and sword, the shell buster, and the Regis disruptor pistol, which all come in handy in all situations, as they are all hard-hitting weapons and can definitely change the tide of war. Next, we take a look into the PvP caves, which is the best place to get your pin cushion set. If you're into light armor, the entire 5-piece set can be dropped from the PvP loot caves at a 7% chance. Add on top of that Regis triple shot repeating rifle, which is probably one of the most coveted weapons in the game, and circuit gauntlets as well as X-Core leggings don't really hurt the way to go out there and start digging into these caves either. So make sure that you're jumping out into the caves each week and getting your hands on that stuff as well. Moving down the line of seriousness, we have the large shipwrecks, which are my favorite place to go for my weapons, because they usually respawn quite often and you're not randomly searching for the smaller ships. This also has the perforator, the pulse knife, and the pulse sword, as well as a shell buster and that disruptor pistol. The problem is they're dropping at a 7% chance, but the loot pool seems to be rather small. I tend to get my hands on the same thing over and over again, but either way, that Way of the Miser is something that you can collect. It's not a bad handgun either, but I would definitely recommend, if you are going for new weapons, all these large crash ships are great to be jumping into. Next, we have the PvE testing stations, which have quite a bit of stuff to be looting, but the loot pool is rather massive in my opinion, and it is giving you a chance to get that young Sparky MK6, as well as the replica pulse knife and the Holtzman shield, with the chance at the power harness as well. However, the loot table is so massive that it's almost next to impossible to be getting these things unless you're running these PvE labs on repeat. So keep that in mind. They are out there. If you do have a group of people that you can run around with, jump out there and do them regardless. But please keep in mind that your chances of getting those top S tier blueprints from this place are a little bit less than anything else, which doesn't make sense to me because they are actually rather difficult to run. Next, we have that PvP testing station area, which are probably the hardest things to get into and loot stuff from due to the amount of massive waves that you have to fight against. So going about it solo will be hard, but if you have a lot of friends or a group of people on your server that you like to run around with, it's not such a difficult task. Here you will find more of the defensive side of the game, as not only will you be able to get the young Sparky MK6, which is the best battery you can find in the game, but you also get that adaptive Holtzman shield, which will keep you safe a lot longer. Add on top of that the power harness, which is probably the best heavy chest piece that you can get into the game, and Hallex picks and the carterizer are not bad stuff either. And if you are lucky, you can also get your hands on a black market K28 las gun, which will help you eat through ships and people's bases a whole heck of a lot faster. And now to my favorite part of the show, giving those shout outs to all of you great fans that are taking time each week to literally leave comments to help push this video out into the algorithmic universe of YouTube, so new people can experience the deep maps of Arrakis each week. Starting off, we have Sammy Koufax asking, I wonder if there will be a new video today after Chapter 3 update. Yes, Sammy Koufax, thank you for asking. I apologize once again for doing this a little bit late. Usually when updates come in, you can't really trust how the maps are going to end up out in the deep desert, so you have to be very patient and wait for the information to come out. Also, I was very entrenched last night whenever it finally got launched, because living in Korea, I could not even be in the game until midnight. So only got about 2 hours of gameplay, so I had to come in here early this morning to make sure that you could get your map information. Next, we got Lucky Striker 1972 says, I set my base up on the edge of E5 and E6 as per your recommendation, and lo, a medium spice field appears mere meters from my base, so I just drove my character to the field instead of dropping it off with my carrier. Thank you, Sir Bird. Subscribed. That's right, Lucky Stripe. There's nothing that makes me happier to hear your luck and fortune in grabbing those medium spice fields right next to your base. Hopefully, as the week progressed, you were able to get even more from that beautiful medium spice field. Next, we have Kariyama Kiyochi, who says, we thank you for your weekly service, and all I can say to that is, Carrie, that warms my heart to know that you are watching my videos every single week, and it is my pleasure that I'm producing this kind of information for you, and hope that I continue to see you in the chats and in live streams in the near future. And finally, we have Alistair6662. Always appreciate the work you put into these vids. Keep up the great work. I absolutely will, Alistair. As long as there are grains of sand in the deserts of Arrakis, the Nerdbird will be producing map videos for you. Thank you all for taking time to leave these messages and be part of the community which is shaping the future of Dune Awakening. As always, remember to join me on the weekends whenever I am live streaming, and continue to like, share, and subscribe, and push these out to people so that more people can get the experience of what the beautiful deserts of Arrakis have to offer in the deep desert. For now, this is the Nerdbird signing off. Stay hydrated, keep your eyes in the sky, and have a great day.